Hello and welcome to another weekly analysis behind the news. Last week we sounded the alarm that the Electoral College was going to be relentlessly attacked. Well, the first shot was fired by outgoing Senator Barbara Boxer. She just submitted a bill which would amend the Constitution to get rid of the Electoral College and to use instead the popular vote. According to a news release on her office's website, she writes, "The Electoral College is an outdated, undemocratic system that does not reflect our modern society, and it needs to change immediately." Folks, if stupidity caused pain, she'd be in a world of hurt. Now recall that each member of Congress has taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. Not the Constitution as interpreted by the mass media, not the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court, but the Constitution as written. Using her faulty logic, we can extend the lines to see that she must have the same contempt for the Constitution. Now, America was founded as a republic with the rule of law and not a rule of men. Getting rid of the Electoral College moves us even closer to rule of men, a step closer to tyranny. The Electoral College is a stroke of brilliance by the founders. In Federalist Paper number 68, as written by Publius, which is the Alexander Hamilton, he describes how it was originally intended to operate. And he writes, "It was desirable that the sense of the people should operate in the choice of the person to whom so important a trust was to be confided. This end will be answered by committing the right of making it, not to any pre-established body, but to men chosen by the people for the special purpose, and at the particular juncture. It was equally desirable that the immediate election should be made by men most capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station and acting under circumstances favorable to deliberation, and to a judicious combination of all the reasons and inducements which were proper to govern their choice. A small number of persons selected by their fellow citizens from the general mass will be most likely to possess the information and discernment requisite to so complicated an investigation. It was also peculiarly desirable to afford as little opportunity as possible to tumult and disorder. This evil was not least to be dreaded in the election of a magistrate who was to have so important an agency in the administration of the government as the President of the United States. But the precautions which have been so happily concerted in the system under consideration promise an effectual security against this mischief. The choice of several to form an intermediate body of electors will be much less apt to convulse the community with any extraordinary or violent movements than the choice of one who was himself to be the final object of the public wishes. And as the electors chosen in each state are to assemble and vote in the state in which they are chosen, this detached and divided situation will expose them much less to heats and firmaments which might be communicated from them to the people, than if they were all to be convened at one place in one time." Now folks, does that sound like they're maybe talking about protesters running in today's streets? Don't ever think that the founders had limited vision regarding the principles of liberty and independence. These great students of history had more of a grasp on the decline of civilizations than we will ever hope to have. They knew it, they studied it, and they crafted our founding documents to guard against this decline. Yet here we are with morality in free fall and today's society following closely behind it. And all because we chose to make shortcuts, cutting out vital pieces of our republic, getting away from our founding documents. But I digress. So back to Hamilton. He goes on into more detail in Federalist number 68 regarding why it's important to have a body within the states elect the president, including guarding against corruption, thwarting foreign powers from gaining a foothold in the election, and from keeping loyalists to a president from having too much influence on the election. He continues, "Another and no less important desideratum was that the executive should be independent from his continuance in office on all but the people themselves. He might otherwise be tempted to sacrifice his duty to his complaisance for those to those whose favor was necessary to the duration of his official consequence. This advantage will also be secured by making his re-election to depend on a special body of representatives, deputed by the society for the single purpose of making the important choice. In other words, these folks would not easily be swayed by campaign promises of a presidential candidate or a president seeking re-election. Isn't that a huge problem nowadays? And all because we have shifted the focus from the electors to the people. He continues again. Each state shall choose a number of persons as electors equal to the number of senators and representatives of such state in the national government, who shall assemble within the state and vote for some fit person as president. Their votes, thus given, are to be transmitted to the seat of the national government, and the person who may happen to have a majority of the whole number of votes will be the president. But as the majority of the votes might not always happen to center on one man, as it might be unsafe to permit less than a majority to be conclusive, it is provided that in such a contingency the House of Representatives shall elect out of the candidates who shall have the 5 highest number of votes the man who, in their opinion, may be best qualified for the office. Did you catch that? A majority is needed, not plurality. A popular vote usually does not yield majorities, rather pluralities. So in cases without majority, the House of Representatives votes among the top 5 receiving the most votes. And then he mentioned something highly interesting further into this, that the vice president is to be chosen in the same manner too. So we could end up with a president from one party and a vice president from another party. And this happened in 1796. But then the 12th Amendment came along and took care of that in 1804. Obviously, the Electoral College that we have now is a far cry from the original concept. But the whole point here is that the founders did not intend to have the general population pick members of the executive branch. Nor did they intend to have a direct vote of United States senators, which, with the adoption of the 17th Amendment, has caused great harm to the checks and balances of our republic. This is why we have such a catastrophic debt and continue to add to it every year. The further away we get from our checks and balances, the closer we get to mob rule, which our founders took great pains to keep us from. The New American Magazine wrote in March that the Electoral College has long been an impediment to would-be demagogues who rely on their appeal on heat-of-the-moment rhetoric to stampede people into supporting measures that sober reflection would reveal to be harmful to liberty and the health of the body politic. So, do we want mob rule or rule of law? Which will it be? If you choose rule of law, please let your senators know that we need to stick with the Electoral College to uphold our republic, and that any change to a popular vote would be a shift toward mob rule. To get involved, visit jbs.org, sign up for our e-newsletters, subscribe to our channels, and share this with family and friends. Until next week, we'll see you then.